What a weekend of college football, but not necessarily for these 10. It's the bottom 10. Welcome to the Voice of College Football, best discussion, debate, and analysis based on your participation. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. We talk college football with you every day. And let's go to the bottom 10. These are not necessarily the 10 worst teams in the country. No, they are not. They are just a look across the country in the landscape of college football at who really had a rough weekend. And so part of this is based on expectations, and one of them, college football history. Let's first go to the ACC, and a lot of good candidates there, starting with Virginia. The Virginia Cavaliers lose to Boston College in the Battle of Ineptitude in Chestnut Hill, and they fall 27-24. They led 21-7, did the Cavaliers, and in the process lost their 8th consecutive game, 5 straight in the ACC. They last won an ACC home game in October of 2021. Virginia falls to 0-5. They've been outscored this season by 71 points. Our number one team in our bottom 10, Voice of College Football, Virginia. Pitt's got a better record. They're 1-4, but I don't know that they should feel any better about themselves after another loss. The Pitt Panthers fall to Virginia Tech, lowly Virginia Tech. The Hokies were so bad, they had lost 9 consecutive Power 5 games. So Pitt takes the place of Virginia Tech on our list. Otherwise, the Hokies would have been in this place. They lose by 17 points to a bad Virginia Tech team. The Panthers are 0-4 this season against the Power 5, and this is the team that's coming off a 9-4 season with a bowl victory last year and, of course, a 2021 ACC championship. Their only win this year is against Wofford of the FCS. Phil Jurkovec is completing only 51% of his passes. That vaunted Pitt running game led by Israel Apanaconda last year, 24 rushing attempts against a woeful Virginia Tech defense, 24 carries for 38 yards against the worst rush defense in the ACC. Our number 2 team in our bottom 10, the lowly Pitt Panthers. And we stay in the ACC for number 3, and it's Duke football. And you say, Mark, Duke, they looked great on Saturday night. Yes, they did. Our congratulations go out to Duke. They played a fine football game against a really good Notre Dame team, went down to the wire, should have been able to complete the comeback from 13-0 to win it. We put Duke on this list, not the current Duke football team of 2023, but what about Duke football history? I feel so bad for Duke and whatever fan base they have in football because they came oh so close to being relevant. When is the last time Duke on a national landscape played this type of game where they could have went to 5-0 for the first time since 1994 and could have defeated Notre Dame to pin with that victory over Clemson, which is their biggest conference win since going to the ACC championship game in 2013, but Duke let it slip away. So we put in our bottom 10, the Duke Blue Devils. History, 97th in winning percentage at .491, one of the few Power 5 teams under 500 all time. They have not won a ranked matchup since 1994. Their last 5-0 start, as mentioned, 1994, when they started 7-0 but fell to 8-4. They last won the ACC in 1989. Head coach, fill in the blank, folks. Who was that? The last time Duke went to a major bowl game was in 1960, and that's the last time they finished in the top 10. In fact, Duke has only finished ranked in the top 25 once since that number 10 ranking in 1960, and that was that ACC championship game team in 2013 under David Cutcliffe. Our number 3 team in our bottom 10, Duke. Duke football history. Now let's go to number 4 in a different conference, the Big 12. And it was all set up for UCF to celebrate its first ever game as a Big 12 member at home. They had a 35-7 lead against Baylor, and they flat out blew it. They gave up 29 consecutive points to a Baylor team that has struggled big time this year. Lost it 36-35. The largest comeback in the history of Baylor football. The largest comeback against UCF in their football history. Yes, UCF falls to 0-2 in the Big 12, and they do it in grand style, losing to Baylor after leading by 4 touchdowns. They lose 36-35. Now on to our number 5 addition in the bottom 10 here at the Voice of College Football. Please like the video, share the videos out on social media, and subscribe. All right. It's the newcomers to the Big 12. So we'll include UCF and, of course, their blown lead against Baylor. But the 4 new additions to the Big 12, they're 0-6 thus far. Not counting, of course, the Cincinnati BYU game, so somebody had to win that game. But 0-6 right now, highlighted by that UCF blown lead to Baylor. Other than that, you've got Houston losing 2 games, blown out by Texas Tech and by TCU. BYU lost to Kansas. Kansas State defeated UCF. And Cincinnati also lost to Oklahoma 20-6. We've debated the entire offseason which newcomer to the Big 12 would be the finest addition, the most competitive team. Well, the answer might be none of them. They are combined 0-6. Our number 5 in the bottom 10 is UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, the newcomers to the Big 12 at 0-6. Now on to number 6, and not just the Nebraska football team, but more so the Nebraska faithful. The many loyal, faithful Nebraska football fans, those Husker GBR faithful that show up at every game. They have sold out 392 consecutive games, going all the way back to 1962. And they show up for this? Michigan 45, Nebraska 7. It wasn't that close. Michigan pulled J.J. McCarthy halfway through the third quarter. They completely annihilated Nebraska. Nebraska's a bad football team. They continue to be a bad football team. Matt Rule brings promise. Let's give him some time. However, it looks much like what Scott Frost produced, and I feel bad for Nebraska and their fans that pack out that stadium each and every week. They made it through and endured the pain of Scott Frost losing 26 of 36 Big Ten games and going 16-31 and losing to Georgia Southern last year, and all of it. And now they get just bludgeoned by Michigan, who ironically shared a national championship with them in 1997, and the debate goes on over who would win that game. Well, we know who would win it now. Michigan 45, Nebraska 7. So our next entry into our bottom 10, Nebraska. The Nebraska fans. The best defense in college football, of course, can be found in the SEC, right? Number 7 on our list, the LSU Tigers, giving up 55 points to Ole Miss, losing 55-49. The supposed SEC Western Division frontrunner, once Alabama limped out of the box, lost to Texas. Of course, that doesn't count in the SEC standings, but many people have thought LSU, after winning the West last year, ready to take over, and Jaden Daniels in the offense has done its part, but the defense against Ole Miss was abysmal. They lose 55-49. The LSU defense, led by Matt House, defensive coordinator, gave up 706 total yards, 6.4 yards per carry. LSU has not given up this kind of points since 1993, losing to Florida 58-3. Of course, we consider the 2018 game against Texas A&M, in which they gave up 74 points, but they only gave up 31 points in regulation. Those two teams, of course, played that historic gazillion overtime game. And 1 week earlier, LSU almost blew it as an 18-point favorite against Arkansas, winning that game 34-31, a game in which they gave up 8 of 13 third down conversions. The LSU defense is not good, and the LSU defense is number 7 on our bottom 10 list. And we stay in the SEC for horrific defense. Florida, I'm looking at you. Your rush defense was horrendous in this game. But the Gators came in with a strong front 7, and they faced Kentucky in a key SEC Eastern Division game. And what happened? They gave up 280 yards rushing just to Ray Davis. Kentucky ran it 36 times for 329 yards. That's 9.1 yards per carry. And this was a Florida defense that against 3 FBS opponents, 2 in the Power 5, Tennessee and Utah, the other one against a decent Charlotte team, only gave up 95 yards rushing per game. But against Kentucky and the Big Blue Wall and one Ray Davis, they got pushed all over the field and beaten up and embarrassed. 329 yards rushing. Florida loses 33-14. The number 8 on our list of bottom 10, the Florida rush defense. Jim Mora resurrected UConn football for 1 year at least. The Huskies, who didn't play any football in 2020 and have been a horrendous independent since leaving the Big East, since the demise of the conference, in a football sense. The Huskies, 6-6, went to a bowl game last year, and that was a tremendous resurgence of UConn football. But looks like it lasted for 1 year, maybe. UConn falls to 0-5 after losing to Utah State 34-33 on Saturday. The Huskies blew a 17-point lead. They led 17-0. They trailed by a touchdown late in the game, so they gave up 24 consecutive points. They scored what would have been the game-tying touchdown, except they had the extra point blocked. And so Utah State defeats UConn 34-33. The Huskies are 0-5 under Jim Mora, being outscored by 14 points per game. Number 9 on our bottom 10 list, the mighty Huskies of UConn. And now finally, we go to the matchup of newbies to the FBS, Jacksonville State and Sam Houston. And so automatically the loser gets thrown into the final spot of our bottom 10. And that dubious distinction goes to Sam Houston State. I'm sure there are better days ahead for Sam Houston as they lose to Jacksonville State, as numbers 132 and 133 to the list of FBS teams. Our bottom 10 list, how do you like it? Leave those comments down below. Give us your suggestions for the bottom 10 in week 5. And we will, of course, discuss, debate, and analyze right here. That's what we do at the Voice of College Football.